Good afternoon, Robert Scribbler. It is September 21st, 2018. Thank you for joining me for another climate change and clean energy video blog. Now, for this segment, I am going to provide for you my weekly update on Arctic sea ice, weather, and climate change related analysis. So let's get to it. Now, for this week, we have seen a continued loss of Arctic sea ice in the extent measure as provided by both the Japanese monitor and NSIDC. And what we have seen is sea ice extent levels dip below the 4.47 million square kilometer extent in the Jackson measure. And I'm going to go ahead and just zoom in on that and show you that at present, let's see if we can highlight the a little bit difficult highlighting the 2018 line here. But what we see is that looking at comparative measures, presently, according to the Jackson measure, Arctic sea ice extent is now fourth lowest on record for the date, which is a considerable comparative drop from other years. And it's worth noting that most years start to see overall Arctic sea ice refreeze and rebound in extent by this date, but so far for 2018, we have seen a continued loss of sea ice through late September. And this is primarily due to very weak ice in the East Siberian region being continually melted by the effects of warmer than normal ocean temperatures in this zone and broken up by wave action and mixed in with warmer waters by wave action. Most of the sea ice in the East Siberian Sea region, as you can see here, has been knocked out, and it's questionable if this small remnant will remain before cooler than normal temperatures with the onset of, before cooler temperatures with the onset of fall start to generate some freeze pressure for this zone. So it's a bit of a race between freeze pressure beginning to move into the East Siberian Sea region and above normal ocean temperatures and above normal air temperatures still hammering this very weak ice in this zone and producing continued extent loss. As you can see though here that there's really not very much ice left in this zone to knock out, and so we're probably getting close to the absolute minimum for sea ice extent for 2018. Maybe within the next week we might start to see a little bit of a rebound, but we'll just have to keep an eye on the trend. Now, looking at the high Arctic, we find that atmospheric temperatures are trending above the 1958 to 2002 mean line by about 2 to 3 to even 4 or 5 degrees Celsius. And due to fossil fuel burning and human-caused climate change's impact on polar amplification, we will tend to see this departure start to increase more as we get into October, even more so as we get into November, and we tend to see the most extreme departures from average from December through March, or during the time of polar winter when greenhouse gases have the greatest impact on relative warming. So this winter, as with recent past winters, we are likely to see some very high departures from the average line, which is likely to result in a number of polar vortex disruptions and very extreme jet stream signatures with some tough dipole patterns likely setting up over North America and Asia and Europe. So we'll just have to watch that trend as we get into Northern Hemisphere fall. So looking at the anomaly trend, I just want to note that at the end of the anomaly trend, we both see quite a lot of influx of energy and heat from the Pacific Ocean through the Chukchi Sea Zone, as well as continuing in through the central Siberian region through a ridge pattern. It's also worth noting that in some of the longer range model forecasts, we start to see a pretty strong dipole emerging over North America, with a cold pole developing over Canada and the central US in association with a deep trough, and but much above normal temperatures developing in through Alaska and the Pacific coastal regions of North America. So it looks like we're starting to settle into the dipole patterns that we have tended to see during fall and winter in North America, and this is the forecast in the GFS model. It's worth noting that the Arctic overall, by the end of the forecast, starts to exceed the 2 degrees Celsius positive anomaly reading, meaning that the Arctic is starting to get into much warmer than normal temperatures seasonally, as we would expect, due to polar amplification. So definitely a trend that we need to watch. Flipping over to the temperature map, I'm just going to check the time here. Oh, we're good. So we do see that temperatures are starting to get into areas where we could expect refreeze along the edge zones and possible expansion by October 1st, but this is a bit ambiguous. We might still see some losses of that very thin, very diffuse ice in the East Siberian Sea, even through early October. So a bit of a balancing act as cooling lags due to the impact of human-forced climate change and refreezing, particularly for this year, appears to be lagging in the Arctic Ocean. Now, looking at the satellite map, I just like to call attention to a few features that are, I don't know if I would necessarily call them a concern, but just some odd features here that, yeah, let's just go ahead and call them a bit concerning. So we've still got some indication of wildfire hotspots in the western Siberian region and into regions near the Kara and Laptov seas. And for this time of year, it's odd to see wildfires persisting at such high latitude zones. This particular hotspot that I'm indicating with my cursor is a 71-degree north latitude line. So this is a very far north wildfire in the Arctic on September 21st is a bit concerning. Just pulling back, we note a number of high latitude fires continuing in through Siberia, also in through eastern and western Siberia, as well as in through parts of northern Europe. So very active fires in association with much warmer than normal temperatures over these regions during late September. It's worth noting that the wildfire activity in Canada and British Columbia has tamped down a bit, so that appears to be some good news. Zooming in on the East Siberian Sea, just want to show you some visuals of this very thin ice in the satellite picture. I'm going to go ahead and see if we can find not much in the way of cloud-free visuals. So this is September 16th, 17th, and coming in through the 18th, you can see that the sea ice is still very diffuse in this zone, and with just broken up sea ice floating around in this region, very subject to the whims of winds and waves and currents, and much warmer than normal sea surface temperatures. So we have a few seconds left here, about 20 or 30 seconds left. I'd just like to talk briefly about much warmer than normal sea surface temperatures in the Chukchi Sea, ranging well above 3 degrees Celsius above average. And this tendency of warm water in the Chukchi in the past has enabled a strong energy transfer from the Pacific Ocean into the Arctic. So that's something to watch, in particular for high amplitude jet stream waves starting to develop through this zone, and to maybe put a hit on sea ice refreeze in this region. So just an overview. Thank you for joining me, and I'll be chatting with you soon.